Oh, that's the one. He's like an 80s pop star, and then he like dies out, and Drew Barrymore was a songwriter.
It's like you just gave away the ending, and he dies.
No,
Wow.
no. He actually does the singing. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, and welcome to In Groove, a music podcast that focuses on discussions of what else but music. Everything from the bestsellers to the unknowns, and everything in between. I am your host, Jarrod White, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Dan Griffin.
Yep.
And Ben King.
E.
And this is our super end-of-season summer smash spectacular.
Yeah.
A thumb.
This is going to be an extended episode. We're going to really get into the albums we picked, and at the end, we're going to talk about our random top 5 for the week. We're bringing those back, and this is going to be top 5 debut albums, but we'll get to that later. Before that, we have to talk about our album picks, the main feature of the show, and we're just going to get right into it. Like always, everyone recommended an album for everyone else, so we have 6 albums to talk about.
Yep.
And we're going to get right into it. Ben's going to kick us off. He's talking about the album that Dan recommended to him.
Alrighty, so I got recommended Ginger Baker's Air Force, our album, the self-titled album, Ginger Baker's Air Force. It's a live album, recorded in the 70s and released also in the 70s, 1970. It features some big names like Ginger Baker and Steve Winwood in there.
Denny Lane from Paul McCartney and Wings.
Yeah, we got some
Graham Bond.
You got some good names in
I
there.
love Graham Bond.
Me too.
Well, first of all, I was thrown off by the album cover. It's like this. It's a kern, and right behind the kern is like this big circular.
It's like a big monster.
Yeah, it's a monster thing.
Yeah.
It has a big clown red nose, a billion eyes, and these weird teeth, and then like the O in force looks like some kind of Mexican wrestler dude, or I don't know what it is. But the point is, thought that was cool. I must say, this was a really strong, awesome rockin' live album. I
agree.
The intro kind of just kept rambling on, kept going and going and going, and kind of built. And I thought all the instrumental work was fantastic. I was looking around like on Rate You Music, and people were complaining like they all sound like out of sync. They all sound like they're all playing their own thing. I thought as a big jam session on stage like that, everyone synced pretty well.
No, I agree with you.
They were tight, and they flowed really well together. But yeah, you could tell the audience was loving every bit of it when you could hear them cheering and applauding and everything. The Man of Constant Sorrow, it's near the end. That was probably my favorite song. It's one of the shorter ones compared to the
it's 12-minute
or 18-minute long songs.
Yeah. It's almost a 2-hour album.
Yeah, and one thing I will say, the drum solos, as awesome and as off the hook as they are, it felt like a bit of a filler to me. That is what I'm saying.
Oh, really?
No, I liked them.
Yeah.
It's just that I think the only point was just to make the album or the whole performance just that much longer. It was just a lot of filler to me that maybe could have gone to some other performer. Done his thing was like a saxophone or something on keyboards or something. Yeah. But it was always the drum solo.
Well, say it is his Air Force.
Right, yeah.
Ginger Baker,
like,
you know.
I'm not saying that the drum solo is not bad.
It's his Air Force.
It is his Air Force. I'm not saying like the drum solos were bad. They all sounded really good, and all of them had their own sound to them, and it sounded really good. But I was just a little put off. I kind of wanted someone else to step in at some point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead of just the filler drum stuff. The other thing, I can't pronounce it. They said it like 100 times during the song. Ayako Baye. It's like the first one on the B side. That was like the only song that I was thrown off by.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, because like it just felt kind of out of place with the rest of the performance. Like the fusion and everything, I thought it was really cool and whatnot. but it just didn't flow well with the rest of the performance. It kind of just felt like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then immediately right afterwards, I think, is Man of Conscience. Sorry. Yeah, it is. And it's just like, I don't know why they went into that kind of song. But in one other thing, just the recording, when I would hear the vocals sometimes, or them like speaking to the, I could barely hear them.
Yeah, the quality isn't crystal clear, but
at least the instrumental stuff came out great. I could hear it really well. It was just when like they would
you would hear Steve Winwood singing, and it's like a little it's not as clear as
it's muffled. But like when he would be talking, the volume just like went, I don't know, skyrocketed down. I could barely understand them.
Yeah, I've never listened to this album, despite the fact that I'm a big Ginger Baker fan, for the specific reason that when I first went to go listen to it, I looked at the reviews on Amazon because I was trying to find it. Mm-hmm. And the reviews of the CD, there's only one CD release of it out, I think, from like 2004. And it gets like the worst fucking reviews on Amazon. Everyone's saying this it's ripped from a vinyl copy that isn't in very good condition. They said there's a skip in one track. They said that it's really poorly mastered. Mm-hmm. They said it just sounds like shit, and they said get the original vinyl. Well, it's the only way to listen to it. I haven't found the original vinyl yet, so that's why I haven't heard it yet. But
it's on YouTube.
That's where I listened to it. So I'm sure, like, if there was a skip or something, whoever posted it on
it
YouTube,
wasn't as bad.
Probably just edited it like
that. That also might be a rip, like somebody's own rip from their copy.
Yeah, that is true.
Because the official a rip of a record, of a vinyl LP that somebody owns. Mm-hmm. Because that's what I would do if I had the record. But the CD, I guess, is just like shit.
Luckily, though, like all the instrumental stuff, when they're not like either A, singing, or B, talking to the audience, it all sounds really good. Like you could hear everything really well and everything. You heard everybody's performance, and it all sounded really, really, really good. It's just that it was, sound quality meh, and a few other things, but overall, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Good. I'm glad you liked it. This is the
first I've heard of I think the first I've heard of Ginger Baker, and I listened.
Well, you've heard Cream.
Yeah. Well, like I just mean of like is just like his own thing.
And you've heard Blind Faith. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I give this a 4.5 out of 5. Wow. I thought this was really. I really loved listening to it.
Yeah.
I really loved
the drum work on this album is flawless.
Oh yeah,
it is unbelievable.
Yeah, and to clarify, it's not that I think the drum solos were bad. I just think they were just a little bit filler, but that's fine.
Yeah,
they were really, as I put down.
I love hearing the 10-minute version of Toad, the song.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was killer. Yeah. I thought, that one was great. But just hearing, the keyboards and the saxophone, the flute came in for a little bit too. The flute. Everything flowed really well, and I disagreed to all those people saying like, "Oh, they sound like a mess." They don't sound like a mess. They sounded really, really great together. Yeah. So,
good.
I give it a 4.5 out of 5. Ginger Baker's Air Force.
Okay, but the big question is, was it a musical album?
A musical album.
Was it very musical?
Yeah.
All right, good to hear.
A lot of music.
That's all that counts when it gets down to it.
Oh my god.
We're moving along. I like the second. Like I said, I haven't heard this one, but I like Ginger Baker Air Force 2 a lot, which is a studio album with some really interesting songwriting and some really wacky accompaniment, like arrangements of the songs. Some really interesting instrumentation. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But we're moving along to Dan with his recommendation from moi.
Okay, so Jarrod recommended me an album by a group called Spock's Beard. Yeah. The album is called The Light. Came out in 1995. I just have to say, Jarrod, this was an amazing prog album.
What am I talking?
Damn right.
It was amazing.
What did I
Everything gelled very well. The transitions were very smooth, I thought, into each. episode, if you will, or different parts of the song.
Yeah.
Very Yes influenced. I noticed a lot of influence of Yes.
A lot of like Supper's Ready type songwriting.
Yeah, early like Genesis. Probably my favorite song on the album is "Go the Way You Go."
Oh, really?
I was a big fan of that one. I like the first track as well, but yeah, I just loved like the harmonies were real tight. The guitar work was top notch, in my opinion. Top notch.
It is.
Yeah, pretty much near perfect. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I would too. This is their first album. Not that I've heard everything they've done, but this is my favorite of the ones I've heard. And it's just sort of undistilled, like, prog excess, but with a really interesting personality and individuality to it. You don't, like the section of, I think it's The Water, the section of that song that's called Fuck You. Like, that's such a... that contrasted with something like Go the Way You Go is just like a huge... leap in tone and message going on. I love some of the more out there sections of the two big prog epics on this album. You have stuff like that section about Senor Velasco, I drink my milk with Tabasco, that whole thing with the flamenco guitar and stuff. And then you have I love that section, I am the catfish man.
Yeah,
so
I love the humor
awesome.
throughout the album too.
Very weird. So that stuff sort of reminds me of Genesis stuff like Lamb Lies Down on Broadway or Supper's Ready. This sort of eccentric sort of lyricism combined with this musical virtuosity and this sort of playful nature, how they go between one section to the other. I think it's such a cool.
And I love the album cover.
Yeah, the album cover is cool.
Oh yeah, it was the like those light.
I always imagine them as planets, and they're sitting at this table and they're looking at this light that has this sort of like planet type thing going around it.
Yeah, you can see like a little ball. It looks like a tinier planet or something.
Yeah. Ben, any thoughts on this album? Because I know you're a fan of it too.
I haven't listened to it in a while, so I can't like say a lot. But I do remember when I first listened to it, I thought it was absolutely like brilliant. I loved everything. Like I loved everything about it. I give it a 4.5 out of 5.
We're all in agreement there.
I just think I agree with what Dan said. Everything flowed great. It all sounded great. I loved every single bit of it. And like you said, Jarrod, some of their sections are really interesting and definitely Genesis influence coming into there.
Yeah.
So I know I can't say a lot, but like I remember when I first listened to it, I loved it, loved it, and I still do. And I know they're coming out with a live album, live at
They come up
soon.
with so much stuff,
So,
but the thing is, Spock's Beard is pretty much a different band now than it used to be because
I figured they have new members or something.
Yeah, because Neil Morse isn't in the band anymore, so they have a new singer, and he was sort of a lot of the, personality of that early band, which Neil Morse has, progressed and changed a lot musically. He's been converted to Christianity, so a lot of his solo stuff he does is very Christian in theme, which is very hit or miss.
Yep.
But some of it's really good. But the band has sort of changed a lot. They sound more now like a more modern progressive band, like from this wave with like I can't even think, like a band like Beardfish. They sort of sound like in that kind of thing, and I think they're on the same label as Beardfish. But the older albums are more retro prog sort of sound. But Inside Out Records they're on.
Yeah.
Still. But 5, their 5th album is also really good, but that's more sounds more like a neo prog album, more synthesizer heavy, more highly melodic. But this first album just is the one that I always have been gravitating towards and really loving. And I'm glad you liked it, Dan.
Yeah, it was, like I said, pretty much perfect.
Yeah.
But I would give it a 4.5. It's very hard for me to
Give something a solid.
Give something a
perfect
5. But yeah,
I very rarely give anything a 5 on first listen or first few listens anyway. That's something that an album gains over time for me.
Yeah?
Usually. But, yeah, and how can you go wrong with a band that's named after Spock's beard?
My favorite Star Trek character ever.
And, the episode Mirror, Mirror, for anyone who's not familiar.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, we're moving along.
Yeah.
And
so that's Spock's Beard.
Spock's Beard.
The Light
The
is
Light.
the name of the album. 1995.
1995. And it's a debut album.
Yeah, it's their
And
debut.
we'll be talking about debut albums later. But
Right.
until then, we're talking about my album that I was recommended from Ben, which is Advance and Conquish.
Vanquish.
Conquish isn't a word.
Conquish.
I'm trying to do 6 things at a time right now. By 3 Inches of Blood.
Sounds like a rap album.
Advance and
Advance
Vanquish.
Yeah.
Or Quanquish.
Both.
Conquish or
Yeah.
Vanquish. I don't think it sounds like a rap album at
Vanker.
all, but whatever.
Sarcasm.
They are a Canadian power metal, heavy metal, speed metal.
Yeah, thrash in there.
A little bit of thrash.
Yeah,
little bit. More speed metal to me.
Yeah.
But from Canada, did I say that?
Yep.
More recent band, formed in the very late 90s, and this is an album from 2004. I thought this was sort of middling for me. Sort of, at the beginning, a big selling point for me on a power metal album is if that first track, the first real track, because a lot of power metal albums will have like a symphonic intro track.
And then all
that's to get you like ready for the first track. But the first track for me has to be a ball busting burner. It has to be a barn burning, freaking tear down the house, straight to the point, fucking speedy power metal epic, quick track, like 3-4 minutes, just boom, in, out. And I find a lot of great power metal albums have like 3 of those tracks right at the beginning. Then they'll throw in a ballad or a different type of track. But this album for me didn't grab me from the very beginning. The first track, it wasn't bad, but it didn't grab me. It seemed more of
from
a
your description that I know that's definitely not how it starts off.
I think that's what they were sort of going for. This track, it's a bit more mid-tempo from what I remember than.
It's not super fast.
It's not super fast.
The drummer isn't.
It doesn't
like,
have to be super fast, but it has to grab you with that
it's
sort of
like a good tempo to like
balls to the wall power metal cheese.
But like the guitarist nor the drummer are like losing their hands, or the drummer both his feet on the double bass going crazy.
I'd say the most virtuosic playing on this album is the rhythm guitar. The sort of melodies and rhythms that the rhythm guitarist is laying down are sort of a bit more thrashy, but definitely in the speed metal realm.
Yeah.
Those were sort of the most impressive parts of the album for me, but even those, they wore thin after a while. I found, like, this first track seemed more like a latter third of the album type track for me than a beginning of the album track. Mm-hmm. I was sort of confused by that, because power metal albums are very... what's the word I'm looking for? They're very derivative of other power metal albums. They all sort of have a structure. They're very structured, very methodical.
Yeah.
And
a lot of them don't really want to break out of that method because it just works so well.
It's a very structured sort of genre. And power metal bands, when they incorporate outside influences, it usually sends fans in a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
One of my favorite power metal albums is Halloween's Chameleon, which just throws all kinds of shit in the bag. It's here's some horns there, here's a pop ballad here, here's a prog epic, here's this. It's all kinds of crazy things. And that album kicks off with this song called First Time, which is about de-virginizing someone.
I figured.
But the lyrics are very tongue-in-cheek. And then the song ends with this crazy drum stuff going on, and these guitars doing these sort of dive bomb sound effects, and these animal noises, like all these animals hooting and hollering and screeching. It's like, okay, I get it. It's like this over-the-top joke. It's a joke upon the genre itself, but at the same time, the song is so fucking catchy, and it's melodic, and it's fast, and it gets your blood pumping, and you're like, yeah, first time. But that's just, and then the album goes in all different directions, and that pisses people off.
Yeah, I could see why.
This plays it a lot more safe, but at the same time, it doesn't sort of hit those marks that I'm looking for a power metal or a speed metal album to hit.
Yeah.
And every track to me just sort of was in the same ballpark.
That's what I was thinking of, because I haven't, before I recommended to you, I didn't listen to this for like a while, but this morning I was at the gym and I threw it on. I'm like, I gotta re-listen to this. I gotta remember what I listened to way back when. Do you know the game Brutal Legend, right?
Yeah.
Deadly Sinners was like the biggest song on there. Like that was always on the
probably
trailer.
the best song on the album.
And that was like, what's it called? When I played Brutal Legend and I loved Brutal Legend, I immediately I listened to this and I listened to Fire Up the Blades, which is their next album, and I'm just like, yeah, these guys are all, and I haven't listened to them ever. I haven't listened to them since. So I re-listened to it, and what I was getting out of it was like every song they're not really going anywhere with their riffs. They're not really going anywhere with their vocals or anything. They kind of just stick to very now I'm trying to think of the word. Let's just go with methodical. They're just going. They're just running its course.
Sort of
standard
metal.
They're not they're not taking any chances, even though this isn't their debut. This is their second album, but they didn't really take any chances with this. And like from the title of the tracks and the album cover, you're expecting kind of like this warlike, and I'm getting all pumped up for it. And I never really got super pumped up like I thought I was going to be. I think
my biggest disappointment with this was that I didn't get the cheese I wanted. Because you look at that cover, which is just awful. It's just so bad.
It's just
and then with the name like 3 inches of blood.
Sort of muscly guy, like, I got an axe and we're all going to
It's awful. It's awful.
It just looks
and then with the title like Advance and Vanquish, and I look at the track list real quick, and there's multiple parts of this Upon the Boiling Sea thing.
Yeah.
Which I don't see any connection between the tracks. Maybe if I listened more, I would. And the song titles just being so over the top. Swordmaster, Wickedtron, Axes of Evil.
And one before Swordmaster, like I can't pronounce it.
Wickedtron. But these songs
I'm sure
just
is like some kind of axe.
They
sword.
don't have the cheese that I want from. Like I said, this is more heavy metal, speed metal than power metal.
Yeah. Okay.
And I didn't get the flourishes of that power metal that I needed. The vocals are very one note, very high pitched, snarling sort of vocals. And there's actually 2 vocalists, and
there's the really high pitched one, and then you can hear the lower groggly guy come in a few times.
But it sticks more to the high pitched snarls throughout.
Yeah, that's kind of like their image. It's that one vocalist. That's like their thing.
Maybe they could have played off the 2 vocalists better. I think the tracks where they did, there was one towards the beginning where they played off. I think it was Deadly Sinners actually, where they played off each other very well. And that's the best track.
Deadly Sinners, and then so they play off.
Deadly Sinners.
Yeah, that's where they go off on each other.
But this album
sounds good.
It's very. It sounds a lot like Judas Priest Painkiller, that album.
Yeah.
But that album to me is just so cool because it takes Judas Priest in a different direction.
Yeah.
Judas Priest is like, okay, I think that album came out late 80s, like 88 or something. They're at the point in their career where they've been there, done that, and they just, okay, what can we do to just stay on top of our game? And they say, we're going to speed everything up 200%, and Rob just go fucking nuts. And Rob Halford just, the vocals on that track Painkiller, it's not only a monumental moment in that band's history, but sort of a monumental moment in melodic metal history too, because it just pushes melodic metal to its extreme.
They really did on that thing.
And that track with the drumming on that track, it's just that's what you want from an opening track. You want
they got like this new image for them.
Balls to the wall metal. This album to me just felt like a compilation of last third of the album tracks. Every power metal album, almost every one, towards the end of the album, you get 2 or 3 tracks that are just, sort of floundering there. They're just the treading water tracks of the album, and they just, call them padding or filler or whatever.
And you would think by the end, like, maybe the last 3, they would mix it up a bit, but all the riffs are still sounding the same, the vocals are still sounding the same. Which is a bit disappointing.
I was sort of hoping, maybe they saved because a lot of power metal albums too, after they have those few tracks that sort of let you down, they'll have the last track or two be big, epic, sort of.
They never
They
really
don't really.
were.
The album just
Like,
sort of
I
fizzles
would
out with the same
I would
sort
say
of
maybe,
momentum
like,
it began with.
The second to last one, the Crimson Cloak, that would probably be like, for the ending, that would probably be like my favorite. Even though the last one is like that, Upon the Boiling Sea, Part 3, like you said, I don't
really see the connection.
I don't see the connection.
I'm sure lyrically they're connected, but
I bet you if like you listen to them in like 1, 2, 3 and not the whole album by itself, maybe you would hear something.
yeah, maybe if they changed the track listing and they had the 3 come in the order and they sort of gave some segues between them, it'd be a little more variety in the album.
Because like by the time you get to Part 2 or even 3, you don't even remember that there was a part before it, or if this is the second part or the third part. I don't even remember.
And this is just. I mean, I don't want to badmouth myself, but when I was listening to this, I didn't pay attention to the lyrics because I knew it was heavy metal, power metal, which, unless you have some clue that it's going to be unique, you just sort of don't pay attention to the lyrics. You pay attention to the vocals heavily, but the quality of the vocals, the melodic lines, not what they're actually saying, because it's just the same old bullshit.
Yeah, because like
which I love, but
3 Inches of Blood, the album title, the track listing, you know all it's going to be. It's them like going into battle and to then destroy the orcs and with Wicked Tron. I still don't know what it is.
I have to say though,
like
all the tracks, if I took one, any one track on its own, it was enjoyable. The one track I didn't like was Crazy Nights, which
that one
it sent me to Wikipedia. It made me go to Wikipedia because it was saying this has to be a cover, because sometimes these power metal bands will do covers of bands like Kiss, Scorpions,
which way they say Kiss,
Maiden.
Crazy Nights.
Yeah, they have a song called Crazy Nights.
And I was like, but this isn't the Kiss song Crazy Nights. And that song sucked. It really, really sucked.
It's a dumb pop song.
Really dumb, watered down sort of song with just this awfully moronic chorus. And it came totally out of the blue. It was lyrically, from what I could, gather, totally different than all the other tracks, which had this sort of medieval battle theme. This one was
commercial, like, would you say?
Crazy nights, partying, crazy nights. I don't know. That track I didn't like. All the other ones were okay.
Maybe Crazy Nights is like they just won the battle and they're all drinking mead and doing whatever they want.
I don't know.
But still, it's
very weak track.
I could barely pay attention to the lyrics when it comes to this. Like someone
exactly same here.
Someone like Creator, like who I listened to like immediately after listening to this and whatnot. Like I could listen to their lyrics because they're really, really cool, and like I could pay attention to them because they're not like screeching like these guys are. I can actually pay attention a bit more. You know what I mean? So that's
I'd have to say on this album a very weak 3 or a strong 2.5. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but it's definitely overlong. Could have cut a few songs and sort of shuffled up the track listing, and maybe some different production might have
would have been nice.
Elevated it. If you had some more instruments, if you had some medieval sounding instruments accompanying the band, it would have enhanced the mood.
Added to that image that they were going for.
Yeah, this was just a little too straightforward for me and not creative enough to really justify the runtime, which is over 50 minutes. Mm-hmm. Just for me was a little too much of not enough. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's 3 Inches of Blood.
So what do you give it?
Like I said, a weak 3 or a strong 2.5, somewhere around there.
I give it a 3.5, just because I did really enjoy it when I first listened to it. I don't give it like a 4 or anything, but I'll give it like a nice solid.
And
3.5.
it was a very musical album, but it just, like I said, didn't do it for me totally. But yeah, we're gonna move along, and we're going to Ben now for his second album, which is an album that was recommended to him from me. And are we going to talk about both albums? We should just talk about both albums. They're companion pieces.
Well, I mean, we're going to do debut albums, and that is their debut. I only listened to Yellow Magic Orchestra's debut.
Yeah, I know.
So do you want to save it to that? Because maybe it's on one of our lists.
Well, it might be.
Well, it might be.
But I did give you both albums.
Let's just talk about both.
Let's talk about both. I think they're good companion pieces. They go together. Tell them what we're talking about.
All right. Hold on. I gotta get like the year and that kind of
78.
78. Okay. So this is Ryuichi Sakamoto's first album, Thousand Knives, released in 1978. And when I looked it up on Wikipedia, I was looking around to see it because I couldn't find it on YouTube. I couldn't find it on Spotify or anything. I looked it up on Wikipedia just because.
Yeah.
Apparently, it took him 500 hours to make, and there were a few days where he just did not sleep. He didn't sleep, or he probably ate, but like he just full on stayed up all
I think
days.
the album cover captures that sort of mood well.
Oh yeah, like he just looks completely
He looks
dead.
exhausted.
He wants to go bathe in the bathtub, but then like he's got work to do and everything. He just looks like, yeah, I'm about to pass out right now. But all right, so I found it really, as soon as it opened up, I found it really, the first song really hooked me.
I love that first track.
The first track hooked me when the guitar came in. The guitar was like, whoa, this
searing, blistering
I didn't know
guitar
this,
solo.
I wasn't expecting this guitar to come out, and that all sounded really good to me. I was listening to the electronic beats and everything, and it all sounded really good, flowed great, and there were a lot of interesting beats and sound to it, and I thought that first track was probably the most eclectic on the whole album.
Yeah,
to me, and it sounded.
It's
great.
sort of a grand sampler of everything that's coming throughout.
Yep. So that was great. Second song, Island of Woods. I wouldn't really consider it a song. It was really atmospheric. I get what he's going
It's an
for.
atmospheric sort of ambient.
I get what he's going
studio
for.
experiment.
Because like, with the other track list, like, I don't know what the fourth one is, but Grasshoppers, Plastic Bamboo, The End of Asia.
Mm-hmm.
I get that he's trying to he's like, all right, this is the beginning of what I want to do with the rest of the album. But it was 10 minutes long, and at one point I looked at my laptop to make sure it didn't freeze or something. I'm like, or start skipping. I'm like, it kind of just kept going and going, and I thought it probably would have worked better if it was like a minute, maybe 2 minute long, atmospheric prologue to whatever he wanted to do next. But it lasted for about 10 minutes. And I was just waiting, and I'm waiting. I'm like, all right, you got to get to the next song, maybe. It was too slow and way too gradual to me. It just that's like my big complaint. It was just that song was way too long, and it made the album just 10 minutes longer. It was interesting at first. Like I said, if you cut it down to maybe 2 minutes as a prologue, a prelude, whatever you want to call it, to the next one, it would have been really cool because it has an atmospheric feel to it. It was really interesting. I loved hearing the sounds, but after a while, I'm like, I don't really need to keep hearing this more and more. I can hear the winds. I already have the image in my mind and everything. Let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I gotta say. The piano work in Grasshopper though was excellent.
Yeah,
absolutely excellent.
He's a great pianist.
When I finished the album, I actually went back to Grasshopper and I listened to it again just so I could hear the piano work. I thought the piano work was absolutely excellent. I loved that. And the other thing I have to say is, as much as I loved hearing all these electronic sounds and all these beats and everything, and I thought it was really great, I thought it was good, I have to say, I don't know if you found this, the last two songs, they don't sound totally alike, but they sounded a bit they sounded a bit similar to me, and I couldn't differentiate one from the other. I thought it was just a continuation from the other, even though he probably didn't mean to.
They're sort of in the same
Because
theme.
I'm hearing the same sounds. I'm hearing the same beat and whatnot. I was hearing basically not precisely the same thing, but something very similar to what just came before it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, though, it has to do with the fact that this album, up until that point, is so eclectic.
Yeah.
Because you go from Thousand Knives to Island of Woods, which I like, but it is probably my least favorite song on here. Which is like a 180 shift in just atmosphere and tone and vibe and everything. To Grasshoppers, which is something different. To the next track, which is different. And
I can't pronounce the fourth track. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, it's in German, so I'm not going to try. But, excuse me. And then I really like Plastic Bamboo a lot, which I think Plastic Bamboo is stronger than the last track, End of Asia.
The really good songs. It's just that...
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the album was so eclectic up until that point. But I think both those tracks have definite merit.
Yeah.
Especially Plastic Bamboo, which I love.
It's just like was the Air Force thing. As much as I loved hearing the drum solos, they were just too long. As much as I really liked listening to the last two songs, they just sounded way too much alike, is all.
Yeah.
You know? So I have to say this was a really strong album. I really liked it and then you think back, well, he only took 500 hours to make. That's crazy. Even though it's telling me it was recorded April 4th to October 20th, maybe mixing or whatever. But the point is, really good. Loved the beats. Thought it was a great, interesting sound to it. And you could also hear like the culture. Is he Japanese or
Japanese?
You could definitely, I could hear kind of like that Japanese culture influence.
Yeah.
Definitely, especially in like Plastic Bamboo or Grasshoppers, you can hear it. But yeah, I really liked it. I give this a really good 4 stars out of 5.
Yeah, I like this album a lot.
Yeah.
I recommended this to you. I love Yellow Magic Orchestra. They're one of my favorite bands, definitely.
Yeah.
And this came out the same year as the debut. And I think the debut is stronger, but to me this was a good introduction because I think it's more eclectic, and it's sort of I'm trying to find a way to phrase this. It's more transparent in that you can see more of the mechanisms behind the electronics in this one. The first Yellow Magic Orchestra album is such a tightly constructed pop album in its songwriting that it's sort of, you're not as apparent the first few times listening to it of the intricacies of the arrangements and the experimentation in the electronics.
Yeah.
Because they're highly experimental albums, but that first Yellow Magic Orchestra album is so melodic and so catchy and so pop-based that it sort of overshadows the fact that, oh my god, these electronics are groundbreaking. Because this is the late 70s.
They sound absolutely amazing.
These are some of the first guys to do fully electronic pop albums, which is nuts. And the synthesizers they were using, the devices they were using, the computers that they were using, which is just nuts, is fascinating to think of when you consider just how well written and composed and just how musical these albums are in comparison to other early experimental electronic albums. So I recommended this album because it calls more attention to the means of production. And it's very easy to listen to it and hear sort of the different sounds that he's using and how he's trying to mesh not only electronics with natural instrumentation and normal electric instrumentation, like with the guitar and the piano, but also Eastern and Western musical tradition. Yeah,
I think with the going along with the technology, maybe, like, not to generalize, but maybe they just kind of had like a bit more advanced technology, kind of like over there rather than over here. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
They've always kind of had like that advantage over us, but I don't want to be like offending anyone. I don't know why.
No, and it's not like there was a huge blossoming electronic music scene in Japan.
But
I mean, you can look at like in Germany, Kraftwerk doing sort of stuff like that.
They gave people all these influences. Like, wow, we can make music sound like this. We could probably, like, in a year we can make electronic music its own thing, and we can have all these different sounds,
genre unto itself,
and beats and melodies and all these kind of things. And it sounds like these were like the guys to experiment with as much as they could. I mean, 2 of them are from like theme from games, like Invaders.
Oh, on the
That's so
Yellow Magic
cool.
Orchestra. Yeah, they took all the sound effects from old Atari arcade games and made these sort of weird mashup
Like that's awesome.
pieces out of them.
And I could there was, it was in the second computer games. I could hear.
You can
some
hear
of the
sound
things.
effects, you know.
Boo, do, 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 do. I'm like, where do I know that? Where do I know that from?
I don't know what game it's, but that's a
Like
old,
I've
yeah.
heard, like it played like 4 or 5 times. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, why does this sound so damn familiar?
Yeah.
So they definitely put all these different eclectic sounds together, and it just sounds so fucking perfect. It really does.
Mm.
So, yeah, that debut.
Oh, I love
Yellow
that
Magic
debut
Orchestra.
album.
Absolutely amazing.
So such good songwriting, and it was supposed to be a one-off project. The 3 of them, Sakamoto, Hosono, and Takahashi, coming together for this one-off project where they wanted to blend Eastern and Western musical traditions in an electronic pop setting.
Yeah.
And experiment with the electronics, bring these different cultures together, and make this one album. And it worked so well that they said, fuck it, we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
And they had been working together already on different things, and they had all been in the music industry for a long time. Hosono was in this band Happy End in the early 70s, this psychedelic rock band that's awesome. And Sakamoto had been doing, his solo work, and Takahashi had been around. And it's just sort of a perfect pairing of 3 guys. And they sort of came together in a way where I can sort of tell whose song is whose, but the differences are so, specific that what I'm trying to say is they came together and their songwriting almost all adapted together and they became this entity, and it worked so well that they kept doing albums together. But yeah, I love Yellow Magic Orchestra.
Danny, does this
And all the
sound
related
like?
stuff.
Do either of these artists sound like bands that you could probably give a listen to?
Yeah, absolutely.
They sound intriguing to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
But yeah, can move along. If there aren't any last thoughts, and we're going to Dan with his recommendation from Ben.
Okay.
Here we go.
So Ben recommended me the debut album of Fountains of Wayne.
So good.
The album's called Fountains of Wayne.
Self-titled.
Okay. Yeah, I actually saw them in concert not too long ago.
What?
Like, in 2007.
Wait.
They were giving a
You
free
didn't know
concert
this?
in Boston.
No.
Yeah, I think I've told you.
You didn't notice that like the one guy who's not really a fan of the band saw them? Like it always works out.
Damn. I didn't
Yeah,
know
it was
that.
like a long time ago. Like in
Who was with them?
well, no, it was just they were doing a free concert for in Copley.
Oh, that's cool.
They used to do free concerts, and we saw Fountains of Wayne.
Nice.
They were playing like "Hey Julie" and "Stacy's Mom."
Oh,
and all those
nice.
songs.
That's awesome.
I gotta say, this album I don't like as much as some of the other albums that I've heard.
Really?
Yes, I do like "Welcome Interstate Managers" a lot.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I was actually listening to that
But-
earlier.
I thought this album, no songs really kind of stuck out to me.
Really?
Really?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree.
Were you
I
listening to
disagree.
it?
Yes, I was listening to it.
It's not like
I-
nothing like Sick Day, Sing to the Bottom, Joe Ray. My favorite on there.
They were good.
Leave the
Like they're good
Bikers.
songs, but
But nothing really.
nothing
grabbed.
really. Yeah,
Huh? That's interesting.
Barbara
Wow.
H was a good song. I remember
I like that one. Yeah,
Oh,
that
that
one's
song.
good.
And I mean, yeah, but it wasn't bad.
Okay.
But I just think because I've heard some of their latter work, I think their stuff they didn't quite find their voice yet. If that
Oh
makes
no,
sense.
that's bullshit.
Well,
That's bullshit.
That's what I think.
This album, like they already have such personality. Like the lyrics on these songs are so interesting.
Yeah.
Like the opening track, "Radiation Vibe," which is they throw so many things at you in the first verse, and you have to sit back and wait, and then you're like, wait, what the fuck was he just talking about?
Yeah, I know. I what's it called? When I got the CD, I looked at the inside cover, and it was like you just lost the monkey at the carnival or something like that.
He gave you backaches, and now you slouch. And you have to think about it. Okay, monkey on your back.
Yeah.
Okay. He's using this classic old metaphor, but he's not using the actual phrase that's normally associated with it. He's sort of saying it like it's an actual monkey, and you're like, that's funny. That's just funny in and of itself.
I do have to admit, Radiation Vibe is actually like my least favorite on there. Not saying it's a bad song. It's just like that was just like
I'd say my least favorite is probably You Curse Like Girls, but
Dan, do you have a least favorite?
No, not really. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was a pretty good album. I didn't think it was great, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just like I like the later
I'm
stuff.
surprised no specific songs stuck out at you as either good or particularly bad, because there's a lot of different sort of songs on here. And all the songs have sort of, I don't want to say gimmick, but yeah, each song has sort of its own gimmick.
Yeah.
You sort of have the acoustic guitar in Survival Car. Mm-hmm. You have the strained sort of Weezer-esque vocals and sink to the bottom.
I did notice
vocals.
The sort of electronic whirring and everything's ruined. You have the humor in Leave the Biker. Like there's all the storytelling in Sick Day. There's sort of each song has its own sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm surprised you didn't like pick out favorites or least favorites.
Yeah.
I would have to say probably Barbara H. I liked that song.
Yeah. My favorite really is Leave the Biker. I don't know why. It's just like it just stuck with me. That was my favorite.
It's such a funny song, and it evokes this whole picture because the way that he's singing, you get this sort of image of him, and he looks like someone out of Weezer. Yeah. And then you get this sort of image of him confronting this biker character who's been going with this girl he likes.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. It's just sort of this whole scene in and of itself. It's like a Wes Anderson movie done through alternative rock music, But I love Fountains of Wayne so much.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, like Welcome to Interstate.
Yeah.
That one's great. I mean, it has Stacy's mom. The one that every single person in the entire freaking world knows.
Which is probably one of my least favorite Fountains of Wayne songs. But
I still really enjoy it. Like something like Mexican Wine off that sounds great.
Yeah,
fuck yeah.
But, I agree.
But that album's great, and I love Traffic and Weather too. Is one of my favorites.
I listened to the debut Utopia in Interstate. Honestly, the debut is so far my favorite. Like
I love the debut. I think the debut is awesome.
That's the one that this is the one that hooked me immediately. But no, it's a shame this one didn't kind of grab me. No, it wasn't like me.
It was pretty good. It wasn't excellent in my opinion. I would give it a 3.5. I would give it a 3.5 out of 5.
All right, fair enough. I give this one a 4.5.
4.5 for me too. Yeah.
I'd probably give the other ones 4.5s as well. So
I think they're such a cool band, and they have such a personality to them, and.
Yeah, they definitely do.
They don't really sound like other bands, not even in the alt rock power pop sort of niche. Like, I compare them to Weezer like passingly, but I don't think they sound anything like Weezer really.
They got their own identity, and I think it has to do with their lyrics and just the way they go about going about their music.
The lyrics are always really clever, and not in a overtly clever type of way. They're not. Supposed to be profound poetry or anything. There's no pretense to them. They just are clever because they're good lyricists. But every time I look at the album cover, I think of Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh yeah,
I admit that kid looks like the youngest brother from Malcolm in the Middle. It just looks like something that would have happened in that show, and I like that show. So
yeah. But yeah, it's Fountains of Wayne and their debut self-titled album,
1996.
All right, last album we're talking about before we get to debut albums is the album I got recommended from Dan. Sorry for all the uhs. It's T-Bone Walker's T-Bone Blues.
Yeah.
Which is a classic old blues LP. I like this album. I can definitely see where B.B. King owes some props to T-Bone.
And, Chuck Berry, big influence on... He is like the king of the Texas blues movement.
Yeah, definitely.
Big influence on Stevie Ray Vaughan. You know, the list is endless.
Bringing that electric guitar sound, that clean electric guitar sound to the blues. This isn't the acoustic sort of muddy strumming
or
that you would
Chicago
hear.
blues. It's like it's different.
This is it's got a very distinct sound, Texas blues. I have to say that there weren't any standouts on this album. I listened to the CD version that has a few bonus tracks.
Yeah.
It was like a 47-minute CD. There were some instrumentals on it. Some songs that featured the horns more than others.
Yeah.
You have some harmonica on this album. One thing, it sounds a little here and there like mismatched because it was taken from 3 different sessions.
Yeah, that's true.
But the thing I thought was really funny is I was looking this album up and nobody knows who played bass on some of the songs.
Oh, really?
They were like, oh, everyone thinks it's Willie Dixon for some reason, but no one knows who it is playing bass.
I don't know if they ever collaborated.
I don't think it is Willie Dixon, but they were saying that's what some people were speculating on mine when I was looking. But nobody knows who played bass. Like, that's just so funny to me that nobody would have
exactly
kept track of.
Yeah, like on the back, like it usually would say like personnel, and it's just like I don't know.
It was sort of just whoever got paid and was playing bass that day in the studio,
right?
And because it was 3 different sessions, 3 different days, I love old shit like that when it comes to old blues and old jazz records where, like. It's always so funny to me, Miles Davis Kinda Blue, when it was first released, the track listing wasn't even right. And but who would know that Flamenco Sketches was supposed to be this other song, and this other song was Flamenco Sketches? Like, I think it's Flamenco Sketches and Blue and Green, the titles were swapped. And it's like, eventually they had to fix it. But who would have known back then, you know, when you had the vinyl of Kinda Blue in your house, you know, that this song wasn't this song. There weren't any, you know, vocals or lyrics in it, so who would have known?
Right.
But then, and like having, if you had this album when it came out, and you wouldn't even know who was on it, you know?
Right, yeah.
You know it's T-Bone Walker, but, you know, who's playing bass?
Right.
It's like, it's just so funny to me, and that's how, like, few shits this album gives. It's like, I get the feeling T-Bone Walker just comes into the studio and is like, I was playing this song last night, and plays it. You get that? Studio tech goes, yeah, I got it. Alright, you want to do another? Yeah, sure. Well, we'll have lunch after that. Alright, sure. What else do you got? I don't know, I'll come up with something. Then they just start playing. They lay down another track. Let's go have lunch. You want to go back record more? Nah, I already did my time for the day. When do I get paid? And then 3 months later, you know, whatever, they have these 3 different sessions. And some executive at the studio or some intern or some shit just, I don't think they had interns back then. Some guy
Gophers, I believe they were
gopher.
called.
He just goes through the tapes and, how much do we need to fill an LP? 35 minutes? All right. This is about 35 minutes. All right, press it. And then they send it off to the pressing plant, and it gets pressed, and they sell it to make some money.
Right.
And meanwhile, T-Bone Walker is sitting at home, still playing guitar, and he's like, oh, I have an album out? You know, that's how I imagine it, and that's sort of the vibe I got from this whole thing. It just sort of is, it's a little peek into sort of blues legend. And for those reasons, it's not a really, well put together LP. It doesn't really have any sort of,
I think every song works.
Every
well
song
with
works in and of itself, but the songs together to me didn't form any sort of. It didn't really give me that sense of a time and place that some blues albums have.
Yeah,
and you can sense like, oh, this guy was probably going through these type of problems at this point in his life, and you know, like a lot of albums have like a breakup album vibe to it, or you know, a marriage vibe to it, or you know, love-hate vibe to it, you know. This album to me was just sort of a bunch of songs thrown together, which it's fun to hear.
Yeah.
And it's something I would throw on just, you know, putting around the house doing shit.
Yeah.
And it's just a fun album to listen to, but it didn't strike me as like a great LP or anything. It was just some fun little performances that got thrown together to sell some LPs.
I would agree with you on that.
But I have no problem with it, and I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 5. I like his guitar playing.
Me too.
Like his voice. But, you know, I understand they were very, you know, sort of different for the time, but didn't really strike me as the best or the greatest or like, wow. He didn't really pull out any licks where I was like, oh man, tasty. Like, I think BB sort of took the sound in a different direction, and when BB plays a lick, it was like, oh yeah. Like, oh yeah, hit me with that again. This was sort of like, yeah. Everything was good. Nothing really was like smoking. Like how Stevie Ray Vaughan would take this sound and just sort of like bring it to its most freewheeling, rollicking extreme and just really rip into it. This was just sort of the groundwork for those sort of guys.
Yeah, it's like the foundation.
And so that's why I appreciated it. And like I said,
I love his guitar
good
work.
Stuff to listen to.
Yeah.
But
good, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I liked it.
T-Bone Blues.
T-Bone.
Yeah. I think that was probably my favorite track on there too, the title track.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good song. But
a lot of his songs are named T-Bone.
On this album we have T-Bone Shuffle and T-Bone Blues.
Yeah.
And he did a version of Stormy Monday on here.
He does the original.
Yeah. And
Mean Old World, I believe, is on there. Yeah. Great stuff. Yeah.
So those were our albums, and we'll be right back with some debut albums.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about some D-Butts.
We're back. Hope you enjoyed our little musical break there.
Sit down there.
I'm sure whatever you heard was fantastic. Ben's going to kick it off, but what we're talking about right now is this is our Super Summer Spectacular end of season smash. And we're doing this is a special episode. So we're doing another top 5. I know you guys love the top 5s. And I was thinking, what could we do? And I was thinking, because this is our first season doing the show.
Yeah.
Let's talk about first albums. Let's talk about debuts.
Yeah.
Because, there's sort of a mythology of the first album. And there's a lot of first albums that are regarded as, the best albums by those bands. Yeah. And that's sort of, that's always been interesting to me, that if someone could get it right on the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm not only thinking albums, but I'm thinking movies with directors, their first movies, their best, or books by writers, their first book is their best, and they never write anything as good again.
Yeah.
Or nothing that's regarded as highly again. And that's very interesting to me. I think it's sort of, when you hear something for the first time, if it's different or if it's really great, it grabs you. And then a combination of factors sometimes can lead to a sophomore album being very disappointing, whether they're just trying to replicate the same thing and it doesn't do it, or if they change sound and it sort of alienates the fan base they've gathered.
People hate it when,
a lot of
people, well, I was going to say, people hate it when the debut is great. The second one, it could be bad just because, they did something weird, but, people, I've found it, they really, really can't stand it when they change their sound so drastically.
Too much, yeah.
That they're like, what the hell happened to the band?
But if you do the same thing again, it will almost always be regarded as not as good because the first one was the first time.
Because going different is that's a cool thing. All right, second album, you tried something different. But what I mean is, they got, completely new genre, new sound, and just what happened?
A lot of sophomore albums are very looked down upon, but we're talking about debut albums, and we're sort of gonna do our top 5s, whether they're in order or not, and it's just a way of us showing, what we admire in a debut album, and we'll probably for each one sort of talk about that artist's career after and how this debut album played into that.
Okay.
To put it in perspective.
Okay.
So Ben's going to do his list first, and just
5 to 1.
Do it how you want.
Okay, mine's out of order just because there's just, so much debuts out there. I couldn't really.
And no one's holding anyone to these.
Yeah, because I can't think of an exclusive. This is my top 5, blah blah blah. So this is out of order. But these 5 I very much love. So the first one I'm going to talk about, I am in love with these guys. The first Gorillaz album, the self-titled Gorillaz. It's the first 2, Rehash and 504. Absolutely absolutely knock it out of the park for me. They nail it on the first 2 tracks. They absolutely nail it. It's just like this funky beat to it and everything. It's got like this awesome electronic feel, and it's sounding great. I'm loving what I'm listening to. And of course, the big one on there, Clint Eastwood.
I love that song.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
It's a great song. And then, Dirty Harry on. I would never understand what the connection is with Clint.
I know.
With Clint Eastwood.
It's very weird.
No, it's his first album that really hooked me. I mean, the first one I listened to was Demon Days, but that's beside the point. I
think that was the one a lot of people heard first.
Oh yeah, because of Feel Gooding, Dirty Harry, stuff like that. But
but the debut was huge too when it came out.
Yeah, it was. The debut was really big, and it came out in 2001, mid 2001, and
wow, it's that old already.
Yeah,
it's that old already because I remember that coming out.
And I think what really intrigued people was their image. They wanted to be like these animated characters, and when they wanted to do like the live performances, they would have like, I think maybe like 2 or 3 people on stage. But like they themselves, they had like the screens up and like we're gonna do it like this. We have our characters and everything.
Yeah.
I think, like, I know when I first heard the Gorillaz years ago with Feel Good Inc., all I could think of is, why aren't they on stage? That's all I could think of. I'm like, why are they just characters? And I think that was probably like the big appeal to them. Obviously, the music is great, like Rock the House or something like Double Bass. Everything. It all sounded great, but I just think their image throughout their 4 albums, Gorillaz, Feel Good Inc., Plastic Beach, and then The Fall, they all had that image of we're all these kind of animated characters, we kind of have our own world. This is the music that we have in our world. And I just think it's the first album was dynamite, and it just went uphill from there. The Fall is good.
You have to sort of set it apart because it's so different.
It's so different.
It was originally
it's a lot shorter, too.
It was originally just released as a free album for fan club people that he just sent out, and then later, they released it on CD. It's not like a main album. I wouldn't really consider it that there's the 3 main albums, and that's sort of
because The Fall is just like, well, it's I guess it's sort of.
I like that album. It's fun.
It's good, but it's not something that because like I re-listened to Gorillaz, Feel Good, and Plastic an ungodly amount of times. The Fall I've gone back like twice. Maybe just because I'm not a huge fan of that one. It's good, but I think this is the one that really set them apart from other electronic, hip hop kind of bands at the time. I think this is the one that really separated them, not just because of their image, but just their sound overall. It was really funky. It all blended great. I honestly thought this is an incredibly strong one to start off with.
What's next, Ben?
Next is the Clash's first album.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. We heard this very recently.
Yeah, we did.
In the car.
And I love London Calling, but I like London Calling more, but...
Oh, who doesn't?
Yeah. Stuff like White Riot, sure. I'm So Bored with the USA, Career Opportunities, stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that album.
It's just got this great punk drive to it, and it keeps going and going and going. I'm like, damn, this is good. This is really good.
Yeah.
And it grows from there. And I'm in a time where, Sex Pistols are there, Ramones are there. I think they just made their own. The 3 of them, they made their own thing, and especially
those are 3 great debut albums
with Mick Jones on vocals. I loved his vocals a lot more than, say, someone in the Ramones or Sex Pistols. I'm just speaking big ones out there, and they're one of them. I just loved his vocals.
Are you talking about Strummer's vocals or Mick Jones? Because there's two singers in the Clash.
What? Okay, I like both of them. But the point is, their sound... I don't know. I like their sound more than the Ramones or the Sex Pistols.
Really?
I'm just thinking like big punk bands. The big ones, like the big 3. Like
I'd say the Clash was probably... You can't really count the Sex Pistols in this because they only have the 1 album.
Right.
But I'd say the Clash was the most inconsistent of the 3, but they had the highest highs.
Yeah.
Because for me, London Calling
Yeah.
is better than
That's
any
good.
Ramones or any Sex Pistols album.
Absolutely.
I love the Ramones
The
more.
Clash have had
right.
the lowest lows of those three bands. Like, I've never heard Cut the Crap in its entirety,
Yeah.
but
what I've listened
that's
like,
pretty bad. Like,
I haven't listened to like everything from the Clash, and I haven't listened to everything.
oh, they're a
from
great
the
band
Ramones.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, but like what I've heard, I just like the Clash just a bit more. I just
fair.
like their guitars more, and I like their.
You can like
their
any
stuff.
one of the three; they're all good. So
Yeah.
it's just personal preference.
But yeah, and then just their career after that, it was good. It was a good one. I don't really know the history behind all of them, but yeah. But yeah, great opener. Third one, if this comes to no surprise, Gordon by B&L.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Well, it's like it has a special. It's one of those albums.
King Gordon.
It has a special place in my heart when I have like when you kind of have like those bad days. You guys have like those bad days, but you know what album or music to go to sometimes. Maybe
Yeah,
like
Throbbing Gristle.
It's the worst one. No, but like to me, Gordon, like every time I put it on,
Yeah.
I just get in a better mood. Plus, even if I'm not having a bad day, I'm just like, yeah, I just really want to listen to Gordon right now. I love hearing "Wrap Your Arms Around Me." I love hearing "New Kid on the Block," which is my favorite song on there.
I love that song.
It's their best album, absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
And I know I said stunt. Maybe I said this on the show.
You've said it
before.
on several occasions.
Well, I've said that stunt. I re-listened to it like the other day, like twice. And I'm just like, actually, Gordon.
Gordon
But
is
the
the
point-
best.
Yeah,
Renegade
Gordon's
Ladies
the
album.
best. Yeah.
Point is,
It's flawless.
And then like after that was Maybe You Should Drive and stuff like that.
I love that album too.
And they had some strong ones, and then they just started going
Yeah,
down.
they took a big nosedive.
and it's. I'm not gonna say like they're bad. It's just that it sucks that they can't go back to something like Gordon.
and
or
they don't
Maybe
have
You Should
Stephen
Drive.
Page in the band anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, now
like-
they're sort of defunct. So
Yeah, and I listened to one of their newer ones. I can't. They came out in like the 2000s. It's All in Good
Maroon
Time.
or no?
All
Oh,
in
yeah.
Good Time.
Yeah.
It starts off with like this really lame ballad. It's so. And
starts
then the
off
sec-
with a ballad.
and then the second one starts off with like another slow. I'm like, holy. And it's a boring album. It's a very boring album. So it's a shame to see them go from, like something like Gordon, Maybe You Should Drive. Even Born on a Pirate Ship is good, and same for Stunt's. Stunt's good and Maroon's good. I would say they started going down here, probably.
I'd say
after
around
Stunt.
Maroon they started.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
album
Maroon's-
is much
Maroon's
weaker.
Good.
That is
It's
like
fine, but
Pinch
it's
Me, right?
Yeah,
But
but it's
then, like-
much weaker as a whole than
Yeah.
the albums that came before.
But then, like
it.
Yeah, I
something
agree.
like Everything to Everyone, and then of course the one that I just All in Good Time, and of course the infamous Kid album Snack Time, where
Oh, that's a shitty.
7,
that's
8, 9.
That's a shitty.
There's a song
album.
called 7, 8, 9, and it's not like 8 like eating. It's like the actual number 7, 8. And I'm like, oh lord. But the point is, that will always have a special place. in my
Yeah,
heart.
Gordon is an amazing album, man.
Next
Yeah.
one, the biggest and the hottest band in the world, Kiss.
Really?
Yeah, I did not expect.
Oh,
I didn't expect that.
Oh.
I think that's one of their weaker albums of the
I
classic
thought you were.
period.
I know Hotter Than Hell's your
Jeez.
favorite
Yeah.
Kiss album.
Well, yeah, Hotter Than Hell is my favorite, but really, you think this is one of their weaker ones?
Yeah.
It's one of their weaker early albums.
Yeah.
Damn. Wow. And
Damn.
everyone gives me crap for liking Hotter Than Hell because people say that like, that's like the least popular. That's
Yeah,
like,
usually the albums before Alive, people like disregard. They're
but
like,
like I
they're not that
really,
good.
I really like Hotter Than Hell, but we're not talking about Hotter Than Hell. We're talking about
Or
we're
Dressed
talking about
to
Kiss.
Kill's the other one.
Well, I mean, we could talk, but the point is, but stuff like, I mean, it just starts off with Strutter, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse. Firehouse is probably one of my favorite Kiss songs.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Firehouse, Deuce, 100,000 Years, Black Tie,
Love theme from Kiss.
Love Thing from Kiss. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Love Theme from Kiss.
I don't know. See, I gotta really disagree.
They are
on
great
you. This
songs.
is-
I will give
There's
you that.
great songs on there, but the thing about the early Kiss albums for me is those are great songs. You want to hear great performances of those songs, listen to Alive and Alive 2.
Yeah, I agree.
great
Those
performances,
two live albums for me make those early studio albums void.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
rather hear Strutter on a live rather
They
than...
those,
Okay, yeah,
the
no, I'll give you
glow,
that.
like Black Diamond live
It's
is-
great.
blows Black Diamond studio out of the water.
Yeah,
It's like-
absolutely. And I won't,
even though those are good
and I
songs,
definitely
The
won't.
Black
And I
Diamond like
definitely won't
studio thing has
disagree
like
with
that
it.
slow thing
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I'll give you, and that's how they ended. I'm just like, I didn't want to hear the end. Yeah, I'll give you that.
But it like goes on way too long. It's like 2 minutes of that.
But like, you think about it, like this is their first, like this is what really kind of put them on the
I
map
agree.
a little bit.
Cold Gin, like there's some great songs on there.
Yeah.
But like as an overall debut, and not thinking of stuff like Destroyer or Harder Than Hell and Alive and stuff like that, as a debut, to me this was a really strong one. And they got their whole paint out, and they got the whole sound of that glam rock. To me, every song on here is like not perfect, but you know this one kicks ass to me. This will always kick ass to me.
that's a good album.
It is a good
Yeah.
album, I will give it.
And then, but yeah, so Kiss versus first, and this and my first. This is my last one. Saved the perfect one for last.
Okay.
Closing Time.
Oh,
by
boy.
Tom Waits. Now I've listened to this. I want to say 3 or 4 times, and not every time. First time I listened to it was
With me.
Yeah, I was. With
think
you
I was there.
and-
Yeah,
you
we were all
too.
there.
And I couldn't hear it like super. Like I wasn't super paying attention because we were all talking, but I could still hear it. I'm like, God, this is great and everything. And then I listened to it by myself. I'm not gonna say like I bawled my eyes out, but like I got a little misty-eyed just because it sounds
Yeah.
so fucking beautiful. It's absolutely
Really
mesmerizing, and it's kind of heartbreaking listening to it because when you kind of listen to the lyrics and everything, it's
Lyrics
a
perfect.
little heartbreaking when you listen to it. But just him on the piano, absolute, like it's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant on Closing Time. And of course he gets weirder, like Frank's Wild Years, Swordfish Trunbones and stuff like that. But as a debut, to get his name out there, even though he hasn't gone to the crazy stuff yet, as a debut to get his name out there, it gets me every single time. I just think it's absolutely mesmerizing. I think it's perfect. I think it's beautiful. It's perfect.
Wow.
I agree with you.
So, and then he's got a billion other albums after
It's like
that.
pick one, and it's gonna be
Yeah, it's gonna be really
awesome. So,
but yeah, this as a debut, perfect.
I do like that album.
And just as an album in general, it's perfect. So
yeah.
just to recap: Gorillaz' first album, Clash first album, Gordon B&L's first album, Kiss's first album, in Closing Time, Tom Waits' first album. So there in mind. Dan Griffin,
Okay.
debut, sir.
Okay, these are my top 5 debut albums. Favorite debut albums.
Dan Griffin's top 5 debut albums.
Number 5, I got Illmatic by Nas.
Illmatic by Nas.
This is one of the...
very
that-
musical
yeah.
album.
Okay, enough with the musical shit.
Yeah, why do you keep saying?
Because I said it on a show, and he won't, give it a rest. But that's okay.
It's okay. It's all
This
I did
album
fine.
is amazing.
It
This
is.
is everyone.
It
I
is
mean, I know
amazing.
everyone says this is one of the best rap albums,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
it is. It's one I actually agree with. It's
Yeah.
like every song on here is amazing. Life's a Bitch, One Love, The World Is Yours. All those songs.
I love
New
NY
York's-
State of Mind.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say that
Yeah.
one.
It Ain't Hard to Tell.
Yeah.
All those songs,
It's great.
and the story it tells.
Yeah.
It's just.
When I'm talking about like an album that gives you a time and place in an artist's life,
Illmatic.
that one ups it because it gives you a time and place in Nas's life, but also gives you a time and place in just the scope of New York.
Yep.
Yeah.
It just perfectly.
Early
Not that I
90s New
was
York.
in New York at that time,
Yeah.
but
But
I
it's
mean,
not-
I've heard this from people who were in New York at that time, and also just from how evocative it is.
Yeah.
That really captures that sort of environment.
Because it's
perfectly.
not just his story. That's a lot of people's stories.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
definitely.
it's not just him. That's his whole community right there. The
Yep.
people he grew up with. And people just like him.
He was like, and he was young when he made that. He was like
Yeah.
20, 21 when he
Yeah,
made it.
and
And
he was like...
it's a masterpiece.
And him on the album cover, that's him when he was like 6 years old.
Mm.
Yeah.
So,
And one thing I do love about this album is the various producers.
Oh,
you
yeah.
got
Yep.
Pete Rock on a track. You got Q-Tip
Absolutely.
on a track. It's just
Pete Rock, one of my favorites.
yeah. Q-Tip is one of my favorites.
Well done.
Yeah.
I like both of them.
I like both, but...
Well, I do too, but...
Oh, I love Pete Rock.
Yeah. And,
Can't beat that.
It's just a phenomenal album. Number 4.
Number 4.
I got Elvis Presley's debut album.
Elvis Presley's debut album.
It came out in 1956. It's the one with him strumming the guitar like a madman, and it's Elvis Presley in purple and green letters. Yeah. It starts off with Blue Suede Shoes, and it just... What a great fucking song. What? Why? Okay, when Ben is talking about an album, we're all
it's just the way
deadpan.
you said it. It starts off with Blue Suede Shoes, and damn, what a song.
Blue Suede Shoes.
I have to say, there's... Just because I heard one of them yesterday, there's 2 really cool covers of Blue Suede Shoes that totally take the songs in a different direction. I'm going on a tangent, but it's a very brief tangent. One is Halloween does a version of Blue Suede Shoes.
Oh, that sounds so bizarre.
That's a B-side, and it's one of the bonus tracks on Pink Bubbles Go Ape, the extended CD version of it. That's a really cool cover. There's another cover by a modern blues musician, named Corey Stevens, and he does a version of Blue Suede Shoes that I heard on his CD Albertville that I listened to yesterday, and that's a really cool version of Blue Suede Shoes too.
Huh.
So check those out, people out there in Radioland.
Yes.
Blue Suede Shoes.
And he does very interesting versions of gospel songs, country songs, straight up rock songs. He does a cover of Tutti Frutti. And I actually might like that better than the Little Richard original.
Oh, that's for me.
Yeah. I know, Little Richard is going to be...
he's going to be at your door.
Yeah, he's going to come at me with a Bible. And,
Ow!
Yeah. I'm the king of rock and roll. Let me in. I'm the king of rock and roll.
Let me in.
Yeah. But, and Elvis is one of my favorite artists of all time. And I think this is the perfect... Because he had singles that came out a few...
I don't really know much about like Elvis first hitting the scene. Was this album sort of what got him big, or was it singles before that?
Singles.
Okay.
The first song he ever recorded, he just kind of recorded a song for his mom. He just wanted to. He had enough money. He's like, oh, I'm gonna have make for my mom's birthday. How about I sing a song? So he did that, and then he recorded songs like That's All Right Mama, Blue Moon of Kentucky. But the song that really broke him was Heartbreak Hotel, which is also on this album. And what a killer song.
Yeah.
What a killer song.
Yeah, that's a good song.
Killer! And, but yeah, if you like Elvis, or if you like Elvis, just to listen to this album.
If you like Elvis, you probably heard it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You've probably heard a good majority of the album. Yeah. But like you get to hear him do a version of Blue Moon, which is very interesting. There's no guitar. There's just background vocals and him turning the guitar the other way and playing like percussion on the back of the guitar, singing the song. And it's just so cool.
That is cool.
And I love his. I've always loved his voice.
Oh, I know you have.
So
what's next, then?
Okay. Next I have Wu-Tang Clan, Enter the 36 Chamber.
Oh, yep.
This was hard. Because initially, I was thinking Beastie Boys' License to Ill, which is another amazing debut album. But I like the Wu-Tang album better. I do like License to Ill, but I like their Beastie Boys' mid-90s work better. Early mid-90s work. Perfect album in my book.
Yeah,
every song is killer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love the banter between various clan members. There's little skits, as you were,
skits.
Yeah, I fucking tie you to a fucking bedpost and
dude, it just keeps
tie
going.
you by the nuts and
sew your asshole closed and keep feeding you and feeding you and feeding you. Yeah, and then it goes into Method Man. I just love the fact that every member, when it comes down to it, they're like obviously a clan. They're all like, all in it for, to make music. But they all have their own kind of flow, all kind of vibe. As we all know.
And they're all their own sort of lyrical style too.
Yeah. And the RZA's beats on this are amazing. Just there's one song that's on there twice, but it's just two different versions. It's it's like the third track and then the last track, and I like the last track. I think it's called the seventh chamber. Is it that one?
Yeah.
I like the beat on the latter, the last song much better. The one with the saxophone and the distorted harmonica.
Oh yeah, that's so cool.
It's just great. And their first song was "Protect Your Neck," which is on there. And I just love, hearing, some guy calling into a radio station saying, "I want to hear that Wu-Tang joint."
Yeah.
Wu-Tang again. It's just great.
Again?
Oh yeah, again. But yeah, that's a fucking amazing album. So I got Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers.
36 Chambers.
Wu-Tang Clan.
By the Wu-Tang Clan. From 1993.
1993. Number 2, I got Crosby, Stills and Nash's debut album called Crosby, Stills and Nash. I've always been a big fan of Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Young. This is an interesting story. The fact that these three musicians came from big bands in the 60s. We got the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, and the Hollies. They were sort of, more like the Hollies, definitely. They were like, just straight up pop band from England. They would have like hit singles coming out every 3 months, and they were very successful as well as the other two bands. And they Crosby and Stills hooked up, not sexually, but they actually hooked up and they started writing songs together.
Not sexually.
And they actually met at a party at Joni Mitchell's house.
Really?
And that whole scene, like they were all friends with each other, and that's like one of the more interesting things. Like I think Mama Cass introduced from the Mamas and Papas introduced David Crosby, David Crosby to Graham Nash, and they became fast friends. And then they were at some Graham Nash told this great story that he was at a party, and they were singing a song called "You Don't Have to Cry," which is on that first album, and it's David Crosby and Stephen Stills sing. With an acoustic guitar singing in 2-part harmony. And Graham Nash says, "Oh, wow, that sounds great. Do it one more time." And they do it one more time. And he listens. He's trying to figure out his harmony.
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Okay,
do it
just do it one more time." And then he joins in, and then that's when Crosby, Stills and Nash was born.
And then they said, "Do it one more time."
Yeah, and in the recording studio. They did it one more time when they recorded it.
And could you tell the story one more time?
Yeah, I will. So they made it this part. No, I'm joking. But yeah, some of the songs on here are just unbelievable. Guinevere, Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, Marrakesh Express.
You know what he's talking about when he says, "You make it hard."
Yeah, I think we all know, Jarrod.
Enough said.
Enough said. Yeah. Marrakesh Express, and I just love the different songwriting styles of each member. David Crosby with such an interesting song like Guinevere, and then Stephen Stills has more of a country-ish kind of vibe with like a song like Helplessly Hoping, and then Graham Nash with his pure Englishness writing a song like Marrakesh Express. It's just it just melds together so well. And I just have to say their second gig was Woodstock, and I find that
really
pretty intimidating and pretty cool. But yeah, so Crosby, Stills and Nash, their self-titled album came out in 1969. Okay, number 1.
This is the greatest debut of all time, says Dan Griffin.
In my opinion, it is. We all love this guy. And
okay.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Did you know that this was going to be my number 1?
Yeah.
I knew.
Yeah.
Okay, so the album is My Aim Is True, Elvis Costello.
I thought you were
talking about Clay Aiken.
I thought he was talking about Ruben Studdard. Fuck. Ruben Studdard's first LP is
all know
that
I like Taylor Hicks better than either of those.
Before moving on, happy birthday! He's 60. He turned 60 the other day. There you go. Happy belated birthday.
That's really funny that you guys like
my man EC.
Yeah, or Declan.
No tears at the birthday party.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
Celebrating the last year of his youth.
Yeah, you know how children can be. Yeah. So cool.
This album is definitely, it's probably in like my top 5 favorite albums. It is, every song on here I just love. Like, it is like the perfect debut in my book. And I know you guys See, they like this year's model better, and I like that album a lot too. But
like,
this
for me,
year's
it's
model
still-
takes everything on My Aim Is True and one-ups it.
But yeah, like I love both.
Oh yeah, I love
basically,
both too.
basically equally. I will always have that, for me at least, the biggest struggle of finding out which one I love more. One day I'll say it's this year's model. The other day I'll say it's My Aim Is True. I'm just like, oh my god, this is awful. But I still love both.
yeah, I mean,
There's a reason why it's in your top 5. Of all time, I should say.
yeah, I mean, it's just, I just love the rawness of that album.
Opening tracks, best opening track to a career ever. Welcome to the Working Week.
Yeah,
just quick to the point, but you're like,
know what
oh my god,
I know
rewind that, play that again. That was fucking awesome.
I know
That's the
I know it
first
doesn't
thing
throw
to
you,
think.
but hope it don't kill you. There you go.
and then probably my favorite song is the last track, "Waiting for the End of the World."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good song.
It's just
So that's your favorite on there, Jarrod?
Welcome to the Working Week.
What is your favorite? Would it be that one?
I like that a lot. That might be my
hard,
favorite on
yeah.
there, actually. I love Allison. I love
yeah.
Less Than Zero.
Yeah.
Waiting for the End of the World.
I think my two, they're tied. Blame It on Kane
I like
and
that a lot.
Less Than Zero. That's my favorite. Those are my two
Yeah.
favorites. I'm tied.
I like watching The Detectives a lot.
Oh,
too.
that's
Oh, yeah.
that's one of my favorites too.
I like No Dancing.
Every song.
Every
Every
song's
song
good,
is.
I'd say
fucking
Sneaky
great.
Feelings is probably the least good song, but I also really love that song too.
I love
Yeah.
that song has such a great
Yeah.
swing kind of.
I can't listen to Mystery Dance on that because on Live Found Elba Combo,
Oh, yeah.
it's 100 times faster. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the one I know.
Well, I like
I
it's
like
hard.
it too, but yeah, I only know the live one.
Yeah,
That's
I don't have a least favorite.
Yeah.
That's an album I really don't have a least
Well, I mean,
favorite.
you could say this is your least favorite, but that doesn't mean
you don't
think
like it.
It's a bad song.
It could still be one of your
You know,
favorite
like-
songs.
maybe like
Radiation-
I'm Not Angry is probably the least.
All right.
Probably, but I still love that song.
Not
It's hard, yeah.
angry. All right.
I love
okay.
that. That's a good song.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's so let me just do a quick recap of my
Yep.
top 5 favorite albums. So I got number 5, I got Illmatic by Nas. Number 4, I got Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Number 3, Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers from Wu-Tang Clan. Number- Yep. Number 2, Crosby, Stills and Nash, self-titled album, Crosby, Stills and Nash. Number 1, Elvis Costello, My Aim Is True.
Bada bing,
And
bada
it was.
boom.
And I think we all know what he means by that.
Bada bing, bada boom.
No, My Aim Is True.
Oh.
Well, that may not be sexual.
Well, he's not the first person to say, I don't think so. So, there you go.
That song is interesting, Allison. If you really listen to those lyrics, I'm not so sure what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I know is he's not a good guy. He's like he's playing like a nasty character in that song. Now, what he's aiming,
We'll never know.
only Elvis Costello
Only
can
he
really
really
say
knows.
for sure.
Yeah.
But we can only speculate. Okay, now I'm going to do mine. And before I get into the actual 5, I set some ground rules for myself, because when I started trying to do this, it was tough for me, because I felt like some things weren't fair. I said no bands that have only one album.
Yeah.
So that throws out Blind Faith, that throws out New Radicals,
Would
you know.
have been
Sex
my favorite.
Pistols.
You know, all those, because I didn't feel like that was fair to stack that up with a band that went on to have a lot of albums. I couldn't put them in the same category. That would have to be a new section. That would have to be best one album bands or something. You know, we could do that top 5 someday.
For season 2.
But, and then I said no debuts that are only technically the debuts. So that threw out, what I mean by that is like no bands that, or debuts by an artist that had already been recording albums for years, but either under a different name or in a band. So that threw out like Brian Eno's first solo album, or Mr. Bungle's first album, because they had recorded lots of demos and EPs, and then Mike Patton had recorded with Faith No More before that, so it wasn't really like the first time you were hearing Mr. Bungle. That throws out the first Yellow Magic Orchestra album. Both of those would have been really up there in the top. And that also threw out pretty much every jazz album ever. Like, I wanted to say Mahavishnu Orchestra's first album, but I was like, that's not really fair, because John McLaughlin was playing with frickin' Miles Davis on some of his most seminal albums before that. And every one of those guys had been playing in different bands, Jean-Luc Ponty and everyone. So that, I didn't count any jazz. That would have to be a different list. But this is my top 5, then. Top 5 debuts using those guidelines. My number 5 is from 1978. It's Kate Bush's first album, The Kick Inside. I can't really put myself in the mindset of when this came out in England at the time and being first, shown or hearing Kate Bush for the first time. Because I heard Hounds of Love first. Yeah, that's the one I heard first. And I already knew it was like a classic. So going into it, I was expecting to hear something really great. And that's like one of my top 5 favorite albums of all time. So, but, hearing this album, this first Kate Bush album, it's got songs like Wuthering Heights on it, which was her first huge hit. And then songs like Moving, James and the Cold Gun, the title track, The Man with the Child in His Eyes, like all these songs, a lot of which were written by Kate Bush when she was really young, like from 13 to 16. And she recorded this album when she was 19, which makes me feel horrible about my life. I've accomplished nothing. But I'll have to say about this album, as for a negative, a lot of the arrangements on here don't really complement her songwriting or her voice. They're very... It's almost like the session musicians and the producer are trying to find something that just fits with her songwriting and her voice. And on some songs it works, Wuthering Heights it works. Other ones it doesn't quite work. Like a song like Kite, I find the percussion and the instrumentation doesn't quite fit with the songwriting. And later on, when she'd start producing her own albums, and she made what I always call the Fairlight trilogy, which is Never Forever, The Dreaming, and Hounds of Love, when she's producing her own stuff and using the Fairlight synthesizer that she was introduced to by Peter Gabriel, you can finally sort of realize, what Kate Bush's vision is and what it's supposed to sound like. But with this first album, what you get is, holy shit, who is this woman? And what the hell is she doing? And it's so sort of different than anything else that was coming out at that time. And it's sort of overwhelming to hear all of this all at one time. And there's some really great songs on here, some of the ones I mentioned. And it's just knowing that she wrote this material when she was a teenager and recorded this and it came out when she was 19 years old. It's like...
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
And Kate Bush is, if not my favorite, one of my favorite musical artists / bands / whatever of all time. And this is a really great debut because it just cements her presence. It's like she is a force to be reckoned with. And just right off from the bat, it's like nothing you've heard before. And I think the more and more she got into that quality of being like nothing you'd ever heard before, she kept pushing the boundaries and kept cementing herself as a great artist and made her greatest work later. But this first debut album is right off the bat. Wow, Kate Bush. Anyway, my next one is from 1966. It's The Mothers of Invention, Freak Out.
Yeah, that's a good album.
It's so funny that the Mothers of Invention were signed because radio exec or record executive heard them playing in a band. They were playing Trouble Every Day, and he signed them as a white blues band because that song has sort of a blues rock vibe to it. And then this is the album that comes out from the white blues band. I'm doing air quotes. Double album. First record is sort of Frank Zappa's weird musical parody shining through. You have doo-wop songs, you have rock and roll songs, you have pop songs, and they're all sort of done with Zappa's weird, dark sense of humor. And tracks like Who Are the Brain Police and
Hungry Freaks Daddy.
Hungry Freaks Daddy. That's the one I was trying to think of, that opening track. And Wowie Zowie, that song. Yep. It's just like, I don't even care if you shave your legs. And that little marimba, whatever it is, xylophone bit going on. That's really unique for the time. But then the second record comes along. And on the first half of the second record, you have the most insane music that probably any teenage boy who bought that album in 1966 had ever heard. And I guarantee a lot of teenage boys bought that album in 1966 and heard that side of LP and just were like, what the fuck is happening? Because you have Help 'Em a Rock. Help 'Em a Rock. Help 'Em a Rock. We just repeats that over and over again with this utter cacophony of sounds going on behind him. And then you have It Can't Happen Here, where they're going, Kansas, Kansas, doo-doo-doo, Kansas, Kansas. Like, all this nutty vocal experiments and sound collage stuff and really weird songwriting. And that also has Trouble Every Day as the opening song on that album. That side of the record, that C side, side 3. Then on the fourth side, you get the 12-minute long epic that is The Return of the Son of Monster Magnet, an unfinished ballet in 2 tableaux. That song is like, whoa. It's like listening to your brain melt. That's all I have to say about that. If you haven't heard this album, if you haven't heard this album, it's a good introduction to Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. And why not start at the beginning? And it's a great album, and I like it for a debut for that reason, because This Is Who I Am. It sort of has a little bit of everything that he would do throughout the late 60s, early 70s. It has the comedy, it has the experimentation, it has the guitar, a little taste of his guitar workout, a little taste. The crazy instrumentation, the Mothers of Invention with all these wild xylophones and saxes that they would just further on albums like Uncle Meat and Burnt Weenie Sandwich. But here, this is the first album, this is the experiment, and it's great. It's really great. My number 3, we already talked about Wu-Tang Clan. Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers. Just
what to add?
What that did for the hip-hop scene in the early 90s, just monumental. Like, if that album hadn't happened, hip-hop as we... Like, not that this is a big deal, but hip-hop as we know it would just be so different.
Yeah, I completely agree.
It would have been something different, would have been a big deal, but the way it is due in part to an album like Enter the Wu-Tang.
We could thank the culture of hip hop thanks to stuff like Enter the 36 Chambers and stuff.
Yeah, you wouldn't. I don't think you would have had an MF Doom.
No, you wouldn't.
Or with if this album hadn't happened, you wouldn't have. For better or worse, you wouldn't have an Insane Clown Posse if this album hadn't happened. All that sort of theatrical, sort of alternative hip-hop approach to that, with almost everyone playing characters, everyone having their own persona,
right,
and sort of going back and forth with each other and rapping about these sort of obscure topics. I don't think you would have nerd rap, or I don't think you'd have an Aesop Rock, Just, it's interesting to think about. But on top of that, it's not only revolutionary and fun to listen to, but it's just still holds up, and it's still great. And the rhymes, the beats from the RZA, these really sparse boom bop instrumentals that are just at times eerie and at times blood pumping, just beginning front to back, just fun to listen to.
Agree.
My number 2 has also already been talked about, and it is Tom Waits' Closing Time from 1973.
Wow, damn, I didn't think you'd bring up that one.
I mean, Tom Waits is one of my favorites.
Right, yeah.
Always has been, always will be. And like you said, this is a great, tear-jerking, heartbreaking debut.
It truly is.
So many great songs on here. Martha, Grapefruit Moon, I Hope That I Don't Fall in Love with You.
Ice Cream Man.
Ice Cream Man, Old 55. I love the instrumental closing title track. So just every song is so great. And Tom Waits, would change a lot over the years, try on lots of different hats, different styles, and progress as an artist. But this first album really sets the groundwork for a lot of his later stuff, even as it got more experimental, the sort of sentimentality of the songwriting. Listen to Swordfish Trombones on the track In the Neighborhood. The sort of sentimentality of that track, the sort of small town bar singer sort of picture of people, portrait of characters, you can sort of hear on a track like Martha. And just the swelling strings, you can sort of hear that sort of instrumentation on a track like In the Neighborhood, but done in a like jaunty marching band style. So he would sort of take this sort of honest approach to singer-songwriter and adapt it to different instrumentations, different experimentations, different productions as the years went on, and he changed as an artist. But this album really does set the standard for Tom Waits, and I think it's one of his best, and one of the best debut albums.
Absolutely.
And my number one wasn't on anyone else's list, and it's Pavement's debut, Slanted and Enchanted, from 1992.
Yeah, I knew you. I knew you well. I knew you would bring up this. I was skimming through to find my stuff, and I saw that. I'm like, this might be brought up.
You have to give props. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
Them along with Iron Maiden and Yellow Magic Orchestra and They Might Be Giants and Marillion. Those are like the bands I consider the top of my dung heap.
Yeah.
This album, it grows on you. You hear it the first time, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then you think, you're listening, and you're thinking, you're like, I don't know what is going on. I like it, but I don't know what is going on. The more and more you hear it, the more the method of it emerges from the madness. And on top of it being a great album, there's a lot of great stories that go around with it. Just look up what was going on with them and Gary Young, their drummer at the time. And then listen to Gary Young's song Plant Man. There's a music video on YouTube. Check it out. Interesting guy. And then you listen to his drumming and you're like, oh, I can hear it. I can see it. But Pavement right off the bat, they're a trio on this album. And already, this is my favorite album by them. As much as I like all their other albums, this is my favorite. And it's one of my favorite albums of all time. Top 10, whatever. And so many great songs on here. When I heard it the first time, the song that really stuck out was Here. I love that song. And I play that song on the piano a lot. But then, when you hear it more and more, different songs start to show up. And I love Zurich is Stained is a great track. I love Trigger Cut. Summer Babe. Opening track.
I love Summer Babe, but there's something about a kite, and I don't remember it.
Trigger Cut.
Maybe
it's called Trigger Cut / Wounded Kite at 17 seconds.
Okay, yeah.
That's the second track on the album.
I like that a lot.
That's a great song. All these songs are highly, highly melodic, but they're sort of like the My Bloody Valentine album, Loveless. There's these very melodic songs immersed in the sort of production of the album. This is very noisy, very chaotic, very this happening over here, that happening over there, this happening over here sort of sound to it, with Gary Young doing whatever the fuck he feels like on the drums, and then this sort of alt-rock Pixies influenced songwriting going on top. And it's a short album, it's under 40 minutes, but every time I hear it, it just makes me feel young again. And I think these guys just have such a great personality throughout all their albums. And this is my favorite. And that's why I pick it as the best debut of all time, because I feel like it.
Plus, they go on to have an amazing career with more amazing albums.
Exactly. But there are a lot of other ones that I want to, like Velvet Underground's first album, They Might Be Giants' first album. I listened to St. Vincent's first album again today, and that's a great debut album. Endless great debut albums. But we just tried to pick some personal favorites and stuff we wanted to talk about. But folks, this is the end of In Groove Season 1.
Mm-hmm. It is. Absolutely.
And, well, we'll be back at some point. We're going to take a break.
We have to go to school.
Then go back to school. Get some schooling. And...
It's very bittersweet.
It's weird sweet. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Next season, when we come back, who knows who will be on the show, who knows what the format of the show will be. So that's why, if you've listened to this point, I'm asking you, send us some suggestions. ingroovepodcast@gmail.com. Send us some suggestions. What sort of formats have worked for you? What sort of discussions have piqued your interest the most? What type of music do you want us to talk about? How do you want us to talk about it? Do you like the top 5? Do you like the album recommendations? Do you like when we talked about a genre? Or do you have a new format? Should we try to interact with people listening more? Should we ask for suggestions of albums from people? Would you guys be interested in recommending us albums to listen to? Any type of suggestion you have for the show, we're willing to take. But other than that, we'll see you next season, and we're signing off. My name is Jarrod White.
I'm Ben.
I'm Dan Griffin.
And see you later.